Captain Marshall T.C. Wabash, and we're going to do the Candlelight down Quarter Lane tour. Take about an hour. Hopefully the weather holds out for us. We got the ranger here. He's got his lantern here full of candles. Sands is over here looking at the little bit of crops that's growing in the thing. So we're going to wait 10 more minutes in case anybody else decides to show up. And then we're going to start this walk and find out what's going on.
This tour is going to take roughly an hour. Welcome to Quarter Lane by Candlelight. My name is Joel. I'm an interpreter here at Chippokes State Park. So we have some, from what I gather, all of you are kind of new to Chippokes, right? Okay, cool. Cool. I'm just going to show you some areas of the park that you can see on your own time if you do visit here again. Just up here on Quarter Lane, we're going to be starting on one side and then slowly making our way down to where that silo is up there, where the apple mill, and the dairy barn is. Depending on weather and depending on time, we might not be able to make it down immediately to where the mansion house is, but I can at least point it out. So if you can follow me, we can get to our first stop, and that's going to be the river house up here on your left.
Got a good looking sunset.
This is our first stop, the river house. Now, the first owner of Chippokes Plantation actually did not live here, and he actually starts a trend of owners of Chippokes not living here on this site up until the 1830s. So 1619 is where Chippokes' story first begins. William Powell is an ensign. He's a captain over at Jamestown Island, and he's gifted this land in 2 parcels, 500 acres and 250 acres. And he's going to be growing what? What is he going to be growing on property? It starts with a T, and it rhymes with tobacco. It's tobacco, yes. So he's going to be growing tobacco here on this land, and he names it Chippokes after a Powhatan werewolf. It's kind of like them, along with some of the agriculture that you see going on. Like there's corn being grown out there. There's hay that's been cultivated right by the Farm and Forestry Museum where we started. So that belongs to a farmer. We leased the land. We leased around 500 acres of 2,000 acres of land to him. Now, Chippokes Plantation, I always think of it as kind of like a balloon. It's started out as 750 acres and just 2 tiny parcels compared to what it is today. And then today, 2004, we actually, for lack of a better term, absorbed Walnut Valley, which is a neighboring farm, and that's our largest lodge that guests can rent. This is an enslaved quarter for Chippokes, as well as that is bunkhouse. That's currently open for any interns as well as volunteers, or either homes for enslaved or for tenant farmers or sharecroppers. So 1619 is not only the year where William Powell first is given this property, but it's also the arrival of the first Africans in the New World. So from 1619 onward, there are laws being put in place to restrict the movement, to restrict everything, and that was a dead end. We went to the area that she described in the email. It was off a James River Trail. She described it as like a hill, as an area with a hill and 3 oak trees. There were no oak trees there, and there were a bunch of hills. So it was super awkward. But rabbit holes can be fun sometimes. Those buildings were originally for storing sheep and for lumber. So Victor and Evelyn fall in love with this property. And they're not staying at the river house, but they're staying at something else that Albert Carroll Jones cooks up in 1852 to around 8. Any kinds of lights. Like for instance, 1630s, there are a lot of inventories that say it's customary to keep black individuals in some form of lifetime indenture, lifetime servitude. Now, indentured servants, they could be black, they could be white. They're working off their tenure, and then they're set free at the end of their contract. 1640 is when John Punch, a black indentured servant, runs away with 2 white indentured servants to Maryland. They get recaptured eventually. They're brought before the courts, and John Punch is given the unfortunate sentence of servitude for life. And in some cases, he's referred to as the first slave in Virginia, at least. And then in 1662, that's when slavery is first recognized by English law. And then when they first establish what slavery is, it's established by the mother's line. They're in debt to the landowner. So then they have to make up with that next year's harvest, and next year's harvest, and next year's harvest. So for many African Americans, especially in the South, they're looking for job opportunities. They're looking for opportunities to make money in a system that isn't really helping them. The courts are making it a little bit challenging for them to make money, and then it's just difficult, especially tenant farming. But something that's important to know, that's not the end of the African American story here at Chippokes. Chippokes' African American history does not end with slavery ending. Tenant farmers still make up a bulk of what makes Chippokes what it is today. We'll actually be walking down a little ways, and I'll try to point it out if I can. A house known as the Blunt House. Henry Blunt, he was born right after emancipation, and he was actually hired in the 1880s to take care of the farm. Tour it. I highly recommend it. If you're here tomorrow and Monday, 12:30 to 3:30, last tour is at 3. I highly recommend taking a tour of the mansion house. Plumbing and electricity did not make it out here until 1950. Surry County is that rural. But it's, be thankful for what you have, I guess. So, some of the surrounding buildings that you do see, for instance, that building right through those trees, the double doors, that's a garage / gift shop now. That white house right over there, that's the Blunt House. Henry Blunt lived there. 1880s, hired by Roberta to oversee the farm's operations. So tenant farming literally keeps Chippokes alive after the Civil War. And it's one of the oldest pieces of continuously farmed property in the United States. 1619 to 2023. One of our volunteers, one of our friends of Chippokes, says it best.